What's up guys? So you might be wondering how a man goes from this to a head of hair like this. Let me show you. Hello and welcome back to the final part of the 4-part YouTube series on Sam Wardrop's hair journey. It's been a long time since I did our last video, and in total I'm now 7 months exactly to the date that I got my hair transplant. And I also want, because everyone loves this bit, when you actually push your hand through the hair, how does it feel? So I've got a little bit of gel in right now, so it's a little bit kind of sticky. But in terms of the thickness of my hair, I would say it's pretty thick. I can't really remember it being as thick as this since I was about 20 and I'm now 25, turning 26. So I think this has got a lot to do with the medication and also the hair transplant, of course. But yeah, extremely thick all the way around. So let me just see if you can see, just when I'm pushing my hand through, how thick it is. And if we compare this thickness to a video I took back in probably 9 months ago, it will just show you how far we've came in terms of the hair. My plan for this video is to run through each month up until, from day 1 of the surgery, day 0 we'll call it, all the way to 7 months. We're gonna run through all the pictures, take you through an almost time lapse of what went on, how I was feeling. Was I confident? Yeah, I was confident, but there was times where I was like, this is a slow process, especially when the hairs fall out. That's a lovely surprise after 30 days. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to answer or touch on the most commonly asked questions, like how much was it, why I went to Turkey, would I recommend it, what medication I'm taking, is there any side effects, and my final thoughts on the whole process. And again, I'm only 7 months in, so the full results don't come until 12 to 18. So I've still got plenty of time, but let's get stuck in. I'm going to take you through from day 0 to month 7 of my hair transplant journey. So we start off on the 30th of September. This is minus 40 days before the hair transplant, and as you can see, my crown's pretty thin, temples, and just generally a lot of thinning there in the hair. Pulling back my head, it was thin. And every time I did this, there was bits of hair falling out. 4th of November, 36 days before the hair transplant. Again, you can see it is just generally thin throughout. Holding on to these big long bits at the front. And it was around this time that I started taking finasteride and minoxidil. So I was taking the minoxidil, I was rubbing it in. I was also taking finasteride. I then stopped taking the topical minoxidil, started taking oral minoxidil, and my hair did shed quite a bit for probably about a month, but at the same time my head was shaved for the hair transplant. And after the 36 days, it takes us right up to the 9th of November, which was the day of the transplant. As you can see, it was fresh, it was raw, it was sore, it just looks pretty disgusting. The sorest bit from this day was getting the anaesthetic needles into the back of my head, in particular around here, but also at the front of my head. It was done in 2 settings, so basically you spend about an hour, 2 hours doing the back, removing the grafts. You have a 30 minutes break for lunch, which the clinic provided, and then they did the injections across the front of my head, and that was brutal. Oh, it was horrible, giving me shivers thinking about it just now. And then obviously they plugged in the grafts anywhere between 2,500 and 3,000, I think it was. And then after the 9th of November, which was the day of the transplant, it took me 2 days before I was willing to get the phone back out again. So this is the 11th of November. You can see it's starting to scab over. Swelling isn't too bad. I think the swelling came out maybe a couple of days after this. Next one, 12th of November, this is me in the airport. This is 3 days after the surgery. My swelling wasn't too bad. There was one lad who was obviously got it done the same time, and when we went to the hospital to get the bandages taken off, his sweat, it looked like Megamind. It was actually quite funny how bad his swelling was. I hope he's okay. Everyone reacts differently, and as you can see as well, on the 12th of November, a little bit of kind of green coming through from the bruising. And then 13th of November, I'm back home. It's plus 4 days, again scabbing over. The worst part of the hair transplant probably is the back. The front heals pretty fast, it scabs over. Once the scabs come out, it looks like you've got a buzz cut, but when you turn around, it looks like someone's literally opened up the back of your head. and then sewing it back up again. Just the scar tissue is quite bad at the back there, from all the little grafts that they take out. Moving on to the 14th of November, 5 days after, again scabbing over, and it wasn't until day 10, which was the 20th of November for me, just run through these, that I was allowed to wash my hair for the first time. Up until this point I was using a foam spray and just rubbing it in, just to keep your hair kind of relatively clean. And this was the day, 20th of November, so you can probably see there lots of scabs. And 20th of November I started to wash them out, and you are paranoid that you're going to rub the hair out, but by this time the grafts have kind of locked in and they're strong, and they're not going to go anywhere no matter how much you wash your hair. I think, you know, obviously if you're getting the nails in there it's not ideal. As you can see, the back a little bit, still a little bit scabby, but yeah, 20th of November, pretty much all the scabs out. It took me maybe a week to get them all completely out, and some of them are a little bit kind of tougher in there. And already it just looks like I've got a buzz cut. This was on the 22nd of November. And then we'll just run through these until I get to 1 month, which was the 9th of December. And it took me around 1 month, pretty much 30 days, 9th of December, for my grafts to begin to fall out, which is completely normal. You do kind of shit yourself a little bit, but it's part of the process. So as you can see, it's not as kind of pronounced, that hairline, not as black. That's because the grafts fall out before your hair regrows. So yeah, this is me exactly 2 months afterwards. This is the 11th of January, and as you can see, the hair's starting to grow in. To be honest with you, a lot of this was probably my original hair, because you can see the temples are still quite thin in that area, and I was promised, or you're kind of told, that after 3 months is when you start to see the new hairs grow. So at this stage, this is probably the most difficult stage, because your hair's grown back how it was before and you're not seeing any of the new growth yet. Also around this time I got some real bad dandruff, because I probably hadn't been washing my hair as well as I should, because I was just a bit paranoid about rubbing my hair too hard. So around this time I got some bad dandruff, and got some shampoo though that cleared it up. And then 8th of February, 3 months after, you start to see some real good hair growth. Temples are starting to fill in, the new stuff's starting to come through. Everything's generally looking a bit thicker, which was really, really good news for me. And it was from this point onwards that everything started to go pretty well. Everything began to thicken up. I felt as though the finasteride and the minoxidil were properly kicking in as well. The crown started to thicken, and then we got to this video here, which is 21st of February, so 3.5 months. Look at this, look at the thickness there. I was so happy with this. And then we begin to move into month 4. So we're absolutely flying now. Crown's still a little bit thin. This is exactly 4 months on. Hair's really starting to grow now. So then 17th of March, first time I could put a little bit of gel in it, blow dry it up. It was long enough to get a little bit of a spike in it, which was great news for me. And it just gets better and better as we go on. Then we move on to month 5. So this is 10th of April 2023, month 5, and it's pretty much excellent. It's really growing in, it's starting to get stronger. Then we move into May, which is month 6. The sun comes out, start to get a little bit of blonde through it as well, from the sun dyeing it. And then my most recent pictures on month 7, the 9th of June. Look at that, absolutely fantastic. Crown's looking thicker as well from that finasteride and minoxidil, and the back completely healed up. You wouldn't even know I've got it done. And that's where we're at. We're at 7 months. The hair's looking terrific. We still have between 9 to 18 months before the new hairs really thicken up. So I'm still expecting more growth, more thickness, which is fantastic. Funnily enough, you would not be able to tell I've had a hair transplant. If you looked really carefully, you could see maybe in the hairline that it is maybe slightly different to a kind of natural hair growth. But you would have to look very carefully. And it was funny, I was chatting to a family member who I haven't seen before, a distant family member who came over from America, and we're talking about people going bald, and obviously they didn't know I'd had a hair transplant, and someone else in my family let on that I'd had one. He said, "Oh yeah, Sam's had a hair transplant," and she looked at me and she just kind of started laughing as if like, "Oh yeah, very good." And I said, "No, I have actually had one." And she was like, really? So you wouldn't know unless you knew me that I've had one. And that's the perfect result. That's exactly what I wanted from the process. I've got loads of confidence again in my hair. I'm not worrying about it, I'm not looking in the mirror, I'm not looking at anyone else anymore, comparing myself, which is exactly what I wanted in terms of the final result. And so to wrap up the video, I want to answer a couple of the most commonly asked questions, and then I'll leave you with a quick little run through of the headshots of my head from month 0 to month 7. So these questions are in no particular order, I'm just going to run through them. Anaesthetic painful. Anaesthetic was probably the worst part of the process. The needles were just extremely uncomfortable, but it lasts a minute because by the time they've put the first 3 or 4 in, your head starts to numb anyway. Choosing Turkey and Now hair time, for me, the quality of service for what I paid was unbelievable, and I would recommend Now hair time. They're not paying me, I didn't get any discount on my treatment, but I do know that a couple of lads have gone out since I've been out and I've had a great experience as well. So the reason I went there was because I spoke to someone who had already been there and they had great things to say about it, and that seems to be what's happening after I've had mine. People are chatting to me, was it good, how did it go, perfect, no problems, and they go for it as well. So go for it. My price, the treatment was £2,750. I could have gone for the 2,500 option. I don't think it would have made much of a difference. The biggest difference in the prices with Now hair time is that they offer like vitamins and pills and stuff for aftercare, but you can get these pretty cheap yourself. So I would say go for the £2,500 treatment. Only thing that was a little bit annoying was when you're actually in the hospital getting the treatment done, the staff in the hospital don't speak fantastic English, so if you're trying to communicate to them, asking them how long's left, how many grafts are they taking, they didn't have a clue what I was saying. So I don't actually know how many grafts were taken out of my head. I think it was between 2,500 and 3,000. I got a couple of different numbers whilst I was under there, but they were all in that region. So that's the only thing I'm slightly unclear on. It was in that rough region, 2,500 to 3,000 grafts. Prior to the hair transplant, I would look at guys in the street and I'd go, wow, look at their hair, man. And I don't do that anymore. I'm completely satisfied with how my hair is, and I don't remember it being this thick since I was probably the age of 19, 20. This could actually be thicker than the hair I had then. So it's brilliant, it's class, it's perfect. Medication and side effects. Longer term, when it comes to myself maybe having kids in the future, I might stop taking the finasteride because I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's conducive to having kids. In terms of like side effects, in terms of sexual ones or the kind of mental health ones, I've not noticed anything. It's probably pretty hard to measure in terms of the kind of mental ones because it's not very black and white, but I don't feel any different to how I did before I started taking the medication. But if that was ever to change, then I would just stop taking it. My hair no longer comes off in my hand, which is a relief. In terms of what age to go, I would honestly say if you're under the age of 25, don't go. I went and I felt young there in terms of in comparison to the kind of rest of the guys that were getting it done. If you're under 25, or maybe 23, 24, starting the medication, take the medication first, and it will probably take at least 6 to 12 months to actually see any results from that, so you have to be super patient. Then when you hit 25, go for it. Why not? If it bothers you, go for it, go and get it fixed. The final two things I want to say is my final thoughts on the future of it all and wearing it proud. So my final thoughts in terms of the future, people are asking, oh well, will your hair not just further recede behind it? It shouldn't do on the medication. If I stop taking the medication, it probably will. But by the time I stop taking the medication, I'll probably be in my mid to late 30s, maybe trying to have kids, and I probably won't care as much about losing my hair from my mid 30s to late 30s in comparison to losing my hair in my early 20s. So that's what I would say. If I can get, my kind of idea was, if I can get 10 years out of having a nice head of hair, 10 more years, then I'm totally satisfied. I probably wouldn't go back out again. I would just start shaving my hair off if my hair did fall out once I stopped taking the medication. And my final thoughts, wear it proud. Inspire others. If you get it done, don't be shy about it, don't hide it under a hat. Just wear it. Just who cares? You will inspire. You probably will inspire someone else to go and get it done. And I think we should kind of normalise it a little bit more. It's still not very common, but at least by wearing it proud, not being embarrassed by it, it can at least open up conversations to young lads who are really, really struggling with losing their hair. Because for me, before I got it done for 2 years, 3 years, it was a daily worry for me. It was like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it was the worst thing in my world at that time. So wear it proud, inspire others, and look at this head of hair. It's worth it.